think it's pretty safe to say that we've just had an insane month for cozy gamers. But with there being so many cozy game releases and only so much time in the day to play cozy games, today I thought I'd rank every single new cozy game that I've played in the hopes of hopefully helping you decide which games you want to play first and which games might not be for you at all. Now for this list, we're going to be going in reverse order. So we're going to be starting with the game I enjoyed the least, which is Chilling by the Fire. Now, if you're someone who's sat there playing on your Switch, waiting for a release for you to justify buying a Switch 2, this is not the game that's going to do that for you. I'm sorry. Now, this was first revealed in a Nintendo Direct, and this is a Switch 2 exclusive. Now, the idea of the game is something I actually really like, as it simply places you by a fire, and it's your job to not only keep the fire alight, but to also help it grow. And the way you do that is that you walk around the fire, find whatever firewood you can, pick it up, chop it up, and then place it into the fire. Now, the way you chop up your wood does actually matter. The smaller the firewood you chop up, the easier it is to set on fire, but it will also be quicker to burn out. Now, where things start to get a little bit more complicated is when you're dealing with wet firewood, and for that you actually need to dry the firewood out before you add it to your fire, or else it might go out. The issue with the game though is there's just not a whole lot to it, even if the difficulty does begin to ramp up as you go. You see, despite the fact that the game has different areas, the only added layer of difficulty is simply that your wood gets more and more wet each area that you go to. And that's just about it. You also don't really unlock much as you go. You unlock more cosmetic items, but you don't actually unlock tools that do anything else. It's just a case of having different aesthetics. Unfortunately, the game is a little bit buggy as well, especially in multiplayer. And there's just so many ways they could have made this game more interesting. They could have had you decorate. They could have had you explore the area a little bit more. But instead, it's just this one element that it does okay. So all in all, I like the idea, but this is definitely a game that's on my don't buy list, even when it's on sale, because honestly, there's just so much better that you can spend your money on. Next up, let's talk about Campervan Make It Home. Now, I absolutely loved unpacking, so when I saw a game inspired by it, I was so excited to try it out. And I've actually already played this game on PC and really enjoyed that version. As essentially this sees you travel around in a camper van, a van which you get to design from the ground up and then place your belongings in one by one. And the fun comes from trying to find the exact place for each of the items to try and get everything to fit inside of the van. Now, one thing I really did enjoy is kind of how they set up the levels, as this sees you travel around in your camper van to different locations. And even though the controls work pretty well on the Nintendo Switch, you could probably see what my issue with this game is going to be. And that is the graphics. For a game which looked so beautiful on the PC, I'm so disappointed to see how it looks on the Nintendo Switch. And I actually struggled to play this game for long periods of time because it wound up really hurting my eyes. And on top of the fact that the cabinets aren't straight, there's also a lot of just blurry items in the game itself. And this is unfortunately a problem that the Switch 2 was meant to fix, but it seems that none of the indie devs got given a Switch 2 unit, so they can't even start porting the games to it. Now, you're going to be a little bit surprised about where this next game is featuring on this list, but once I tell you why, hopefully you'll understand. Next up is Discounty. Now, I do want to start by saying I absolutely loved Discounty. Not only was this game fun, but it was such a breath of fresh air in the cozy gaming space. But there are a few things that might make you think that this may not be the purchase for you right now. You see, Discounty is a wonderful blend between being a life sim, a narrative game, and also a supermarket sim all in one. The game begins with you moving into a brand new town to help your aunt out with her supermarket. But pretty early on, you find out that you're not exactly working with your aunt, you're working for her. And even though she puts you in charge with the day-to-day runnings of the supermarket, she's in charge of all of the big picture stuff. And this is what makes Discounty truly interesting. So it'll be up to you to make sure that you have enough stock in your shop by buying all the items that you need. You'll also need to restock the shelves as the day goes on. And you'll also, on top of all of that, need to run the checkouts yourself as well. But despite the fact that you more or less run the supermarket by yourself, all of the big decisions are actually made by your aunt. And it's safe to say that these decisions aren't exactly gonna make you popular. And her decisions will very much impact not only your life inside of the shop, but also your life outside of it. And that means that Discounty is a game filled with a lot of small town drama. And you'll get to learn not only about how your aunt's decisions have affected the people of the town, but also all of the goings on between some of the villagers as well. Now, this doesn't just feel like a game with several different genres inside of it. Everything meshed together so wonderfully, with the progression of the story also being tied to the progression of your supermarket. Relationships also tie in with not only the story, but also your supermarket as well, where you're actually able to change some relationships into trade deals, allowing you to stock even more produce in your supermarket. Now, this is a cozy game that really feels different, mainly because the gameplay loop is like no other cozy game I've played before, thanks to it being a shop sim. So your day begins at 6 AM, where you can go off to your supermarket and make sure everything is set up for the day. And this can involve stocking the shelves to make sure they're full. You can also go to the computer and buy any stock that you're low of and put that in your storage room. You can also head off to the shops before your shift starts to pick up any items that you might need. And this can either be shelves for you to stock new produce or decorations that will make people more likely to impulse buy certain items. And then if you have time to spare, you can also go and check up with your trade deals. Because as you progress through the game and sell more of their items, you'll actually be able to upgrade your trade deal further, either making items cheaper or getting brand new items in your store to sell. Once the time hits 9 AM, however, your shop opens, and that's where things really start to get fun. As one by one, you'll see your customers enter the store with a list of everything they want to buy. But if you've decorated your store enough, there might be a few extra items that might have just slipped into their basket before they make it to the checkout. Now, this is the part that some people may find a little bit stressful, especially at the beginning, where you're not only trying to keep an eye on each of the shelves to make sure that they have items still, but you'll also be ringing up customers as well. So this is most definitely a game that favors the more organized people. But don't worry, even if you are a chaotic mess like I am, you can still have a lot of fun with this game. Now, there is one disadvantage of buying this on the Nintendo Switch, and that is in the early game, you'll need to type in the numbers to ring up each of the customers. And this is definitely more tricky using a controller than it would be to type this on a keyboard. Now, this is only an issue early on, as you can get an upgrade later on that gets rid of the need for you to type anything, but just something to bear in mind if you're trying to figure out what platform to buy it on. Now, one of the big strengths about this being a supermarket sim meshed with a life sim is the fact that this gives you a direction. Because at any point I had multiple quests going at the same time. And this can be anything from the main storyline quests to move the narrative forwards, or different side quests that you can have going at any one moment. And as someone who doesn't always want to make their own fun, I do really love the fact that there's always something to do. Now, despite the fact that I did love the game, there are some big things you might want to bear in mind before you get into it. The first of which is this is a narrative focused game that you don't really have any control over. As I said earlier, you don't really call any of the big shots. It's all to do with your aunt. And this means that there's no branching storylines, no big decisions for you to make. You just watch the story be played out in front of you when you finish the main storyline quests. Another big thing to bear in mind is, despite the fact that there have been a lot of updates so far, the game is a little bit buggy. One of the biggest bugs I encountered throughout my playthrough that I don't think has been patched quite yet is the fact that people would get stuck at the big freezers. Even if I left these freezers empty, people would just walk up to them, glitch, and be stuck there until the supermarket closes. And this makes the customers really angry, which can affect your rating at the end of the day, and thus affect your supermarket's performance going forwards. The final thing, and the reason why I put this game where it is on the list, is right now the weakest part of Discounty is the end. A lot of people feel like the story ended pretty abruptly, and there really isn't any end game content as of right now, meaning that you can finish the game not feeling quite as satisfied as you maybe wanted to. and a lot of people actually wound up starting the game all over again to take it a little bit slower and really enjoy all of the supermarket mechanics. Now the good news is this is something they're looking at changing in the future, and right before I uploaded this video they actually announced the 1.1 update. And as promised, this is going to contain new quests for you to do after you finish the main story. And so far, they've told us that this will include a new storyline to expand your store underground, the ability to unlock more upgrades after you finish the story, and extra quests which will allow you to customize your store even more. They'll also be doing a whole host of bug fixing and quality of life updates. No news yet on when to expect this update, but at least we know it's going to be coming soon. Because even though it is a good game so far, if they do what they're saying they're going to do, then this is going to turn it into a great one. So you might end up experiencing it at its best if you come back around to it a little bit later. Next we have Is This Seat Taken? Now if you're looking for value for money, then this is the game for you, as this is coming in as the cheapest game on today's list. This is also a game that has so much variety to it with each of the levels, and one that ramps up in difficulty a fair amount. So don't think that this simple concept means that this is going to be a simple and easy game. Now, one of the things that really surprised me about this is, despite the fact that it is a puzzle game split into different levels, there is a kind of overarching story to a lot of it, which I thought was a really nice touch. Now, the first levels are pretty simple. They start off with you placing each of the shapes into either cars, limos, or buses. And at the beginning, they only have a couple of requests. This can be characters asking to be sat by themselves. Some will ask if they can sit facing forwards, and others will ask if they can simply sit near their friends. But it's not long before the requests start to get a little bit more difficult. You see, some of the characters that you'll be placing down will smell, and other characters will not want to be anywhere near this smell. And this is where the puzzling elements really start to come in, as you're going to have to be very strategic about where you place each of the characters. And the thing is, once you've begun to suss out each of the levels, you progress to the next one, where there is a completely different scenario, different requests, and you're going to have to think in a slightly different way in order to make everyone happy. And honestly, the creativity of the levels really surprised me in the best way. Now, the controls on the Switch do work really well, but this is a Switch game that also works on the Switch too. So there is unfortunately no mouse mode, which is a little bit disappointing, but effectively you just use the controller as a mouse and move it around that way. Or if you're in handheld mode, you can also use the touch screen. Now, even though this game does have one feature that I really like, which is the fact that if you haven't made every single character happy, it will let you know that you can go ahead and change people's position before you finish the level to make sure that you get the 3 stars. But there is one big caveat to this, which is that there are no hints. This isn't by any means a deal breaker, but it is a nice feature to have in puzzle games. So this does just mean that if you're really stuck, you have to go and look up a walkthrough on how to finish the level, instead of there being little nudges to point you in the right direction inside of the game itself. The only thing I'm looking for in this game is something like A Little to the Left had. That had a daily puzzle mode where every single day you could log into the game and it would hand you another puzzle, so you always had an excuse to come on and play a little bit more. Because as of right now, once you finish every single level and you get full stars on them, that is the entire game completed. But honestly, I don't think I could ask for much more at this price point. Hopefully they come out with DLC or something like that to really keep the game going, as it's such a unique and fun concept. But if you're looking for a brand new puzzle game to get your teeth into, I can highly recommend this one. We are left now with our top 2 games, and this is such a strong top 2, but in second place we have Tiny Bookshop. Now, I'm still not fully over the fact that they shadow dropped this in a Nintendo Direct, but I am so happy that they did, and I'm so glad that this runs basically flawlessly on the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. This is truly the definition of what it means to be a cozy game, as this sees you move to a brand new town and, you guessed it, set up your very own tiny bookshop. Now each day begins with you selecting which location you want to set up your tiny bookstore at. And each location is just a little bit different, as the people who go there have slightly different preferences. So for example, if you go by the beach, you'll want to stock more kids' books. If you find yourself outside of the cafe, you might want to stock more classics, as the shoppers there have different preferences. You can then finish off the day of selling books by using the money that you've earned to purchase upgrades. And this can be anything from buying more furniture so you can stock more books in your tiny bookstore. You also might come across items that give a buff to specific books, and you'll also need to replenish any of the books that you sold to make sure you still have plenty of stock. But the thing that really makes this game truly special is the fact that every single book you stock is a real book. You see, for the most part, people just come in and buy the books that they want. But every now and again, you'll have someone ask for a suggestion. And it's up to you to find a book that matches their description. And this will mean you going through your entire stock, reading the titles, the blurbs, and sometimes you'll even need to take note of when the book was released and who the author is to hopefully give them a book that matches the description. And this means that if you read the description of a book and you think it sounds good, you can go away, find it for yourself, and read it, which I think is a really cool touch. And don't worry, this is a great game even if you don't read books. Like myself, I'm not an avid reader, but I'm having a blast playing Tiny Bookshop. This is just a game with so much character though. You see, you get to know each of the different villagers as they come into your shop, and sometimes you get to have a little lengthier of a conversation with them. There's also an overarching storyline to everything that you do as well, giving everything a purpose and making you do the classic thing of saying, oh, I'll just play one more day before I go to bed. Now there are just a few things to bear in mind to make sure this game is for you. The big one is that this isn't a game where you're gonna have a huge bookshop emporium. This is slow paced and all about the journey, and less about becoming a corporate empire. This is truly the perfect cozy game to have on the Switch, and I cannot recommend it enough. That leaves in first place Storia Seasons Grand Bazaar. For a long time, I've been feeling like Storia Seasons needed to up their game or they might be left behind. Because over the years, we've seen the farming sim genre grow and flourish, with more farming sims than ever to pick from, and also more unique farming sims than ever before. And I just felt like the Storia Seasons franchise weren't keeping up with all of the strides that the genre has been making. And despite all of the games this month being absolutely incredible, Storia Seasons Grand Bazaar is the one I've been gravitating to the most. Because not only does this look absolutely incredible when compared to the previous Storia Seasons games, it does so much to stand out among them. The biggest of which is just how much fun I'm having playing it. Because even though the beginning of the game was off to a pretty slow start, once you get into the main gameplay loop, it is so much fun. And I think the biggest thing they've changed with this game is the fact that there is a purpose to your farming. You see, your gameplay loop from Monday to Friday is much like a normal Storia Seasons game, with your day mostly being spent tending to your crops, your animals, and talking to the people of the town, which is made even better by the fact that they are voice acted. But instead of you finishing out your day, putting all the items that you have in a box to sell and wake up the next day with some money, you instead save everything that you earn to be sold at the weekly bazaar. And this is where you get to sell all of the produce that you've made across the week to your customers, not only trying to make as much money as possible to upgrade your farm, but to also upgrade the bazaar. You see, the town of Zephyr, which you just moved to, is a shadow of what it used to be. And the bazaar, which was once held as being one of the greatest in the entire world, has become nothing more than just a couple of stalls. And it's up to you to make this bazaar great or even grand once again. And doing this takes a little bit more effort than just selling all of your farm produce, as it will also be your job to help out the villagers who want to set up their very own stalls by carrying out quests for them. But once you've leveled up the town enough, people from all around the world will come to the town of Zephyr in the hopes of setting up their stalls as well. And honestly, this weekly market added so much to the game, as it sort of changed the way you approach and play a farming sim. As in order to maximize your money each week at the bazaar, you'll want to process goods as much as possible. So for example, the gems that you collect from mining can be turned into jewelry. The milk that you get from your cows can be turned into cheese, which can then be used for cooking to make even more money. And you can easily start to see how you could fill out an entire week just trying to make sure that you have enough produce for the bazaar. So this means on top of processing all your goods and getting ready for the Grand Bazaar each and every week, you also have so much else to do, from befriending the villagers, training your pets up ready for the latest pet show, or even spending time trying to level up your crops to get even more money from them. The other thing that made this stand out from other Story of Seasons games are the characters. Now, even though they're not fully voice acted, all of their cutscenes are. So whenever you level up friendship with them, you'll always be greeted with a wonderful cutscene that not only lets you get to know them a little bit better, but often involves some of the other villagers as well. And there's so many little details in these characters that just make them feel so alive. Not just in the voice acting, but also with all of the dialogue that they say to you outside of the cutscenes. You see, if there's an event on that day, they'll talk to you about that, and you won't just get the same single line over and over again when you talk with them. And speaking of events, they are absolutely fantastic in Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar. If you look at the calendar, you can see that each of these green flags are a different event that you can prepare for. Now, these are themed events that often involve you needing to prepare for them in some sort of way, normally making certain items ready for them. There's also animal and crop shows, and these are where you get to pick your best animal or your best crop and put them against other people's. And the best part is, if you wind up winning, you can actually sell your produce, all those vegetables, for even more money at the bazaar. And then you also have pet shows and horse derbies. Now, first of all, can we just take a moment to appreciate just how cute these animals are? Like, look at them. Look at the way you pick them up. This game is just so detailed in the best possible way, and I love it. And this means that it's a game that I could not put down. Another thing to bear in mind is this is a game all about wind, as the wind affects basically everything that you do. It will affect which directions your character can jump and glide in. It will also affect how fast your items are processed, because all of the processing happens in these windmills. But it can also affect your crops. You see, you can have hurricanes and blizzards, and if you don't protect your crops against them, it can wind up wiping out your entire field. So even though this is a really cool feature to have, I do want to warn about it, because for some people it might be a little bit of a deal breaker, especially as it's something you can't turn off in the settings. Now, even though I've loved my time with it, there are a few things I wish Story of Seasons would change. I feel like they're still a little bit set in their old ways. The first of which is to do with their storage. This is a game where you are constantly fighting against the storage. And even though you can upgrade it as you go along throughout the game, it is forever a struggle. And to make matters worse, they also make things slightly difficult when it comes to processing your materials. And this is a huge part of Grand Bazaar, as the more you process a material, the higher its value, and the faster you're going to level up your bazaar level. But they've made this a little bit difficult, because you can only craft with the items that you have in your bag, and it will not automatically access your wider storage, which can be a little bit frustrating with you having to constantly click in and out of different menus to bring the right items in. But so far, I've loved my time with it. It's grindy, but in a good way. I'm having fun doing everything that I'm doing. The bazaar adds in so many fun elements. Truly, the only thing stopping me from saying this is a must buy is its price point. This is a pretty dear game both on the Switch and the Switch 2. And by the way, let me show some comparison footage here between the two so you can decide which one you want to buy. In my opinion, I think it's better to go with the Switch 2 version if you have a Switch 2, as even though the changes aren't as big as you'd expect, they are still noticeable. The biggest of which being the frame rate, but it does run surprisingly well on the Nintendo Switch, I will say that. It is, however, a long game. You'll get a lot of hours out of it. It takes about 40 hours to complete the first year alone. But honestly, I'm just so glad to see Story of Seasons out there moving the farming sim genre forwards. That's it for me ranking all of the recent cozy game releases. And if you want to see me review more games, then click this video here.